We are recording this session, so I do want to let everyone know that. You probably have heard from the announcement. I am Ann Massey-Badmus, immigration attorney with Cowles Thompson, and I'm here with attorney Angela Lopez, also an immigration attorney with Cowles Thompson. And we will basically start off with just a brief discussion about the new announcement regarding the EAD, H-4 EAD cards, give you some general background, and kind of answer what we find are the most frequently asked questions about this new program. But we really want to give you the opportunity to ask questions during this time, so we will try to keep that part brief, and so we'll have enough time during this hour to answer all your questions, considering the number of people that we have on the line. So let me just summarize. As many of you know, in the past couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, the government announced that on May 26th, it will begin accepting H-4 EAD employment authorization document applications for work authorization for H-4 spouses. Of course, that's only limited to what we would say are two categories of H-4 spouses that would be eligible for work authorization, and that would be those whose spouse, H-1B worker spouse, has an approved I-140 petition, which is a green card petition. So that has to be approved. Or if the primary H-1B worker spouse is currently in their 7th or later year of H-1B status because of the fact that there is a pending green card application. So if the H-1B worker has a labor certification application that has been pending for at least 365 days, or an I-140 petition that has been pending for at least 365 days before his 6-year limit of H-1B time, he or she can get an additional 1 year on H-1B status and extend H-1B status as long as the green card applications are pending. So that really means, though, that it's not, if someone is actually midway through applying for the green card, but they haven't been able to get that 7th year extension on the H-1B, or if you have still plenty of time left on your H-1B, then you would not really qualify, or your H-4 spouse would not qualify for the H-4 category, EAD category, unless you have an approved I-140 petition. It does the H-4 spouse who let me backtrack. There are other H-4 spouses out there who would not be eligible. So, for example, if you are an H-4 spouse of an H-1B1, which is one of the free trade NAFTA H-1Bs, a little different from the general ones that most people have, or if you're someone has an H-2 visa as the worker or an H-3 visa as the worker, those H-4 spouses are not eligible for work authorization at this time, although it might expand later, but at this time it's not included. And of course, children who hold H-4 status are not eligible even if they are old enough to work. So again, we have a very limited pool, or not limited pool, but a limited categories of H-4 spouses that would qualify. And again, there are the two categories that we discussed. So let's go on and let me ask and answer and get answered some of the frequently asked questions that we normally receive, and then we'll open the call for your questions so you can ask your questions. So, Ms. Lopez, can you tell us if there are any restrictions on using the employment authorization document, the EAD?
Yes. No. Currently, and thank God, the use of the EAD is pretty much the same as the normal common EAD that is normally issued, which means that once you obtain an EAD or authorization to work, you will be eligible to work as many hours as you want, full, part-time, and work with whoever or any employer you might wish.
Okay. So once someone gets an EAD, when under this H-4 EAD, this new H-4 EAD, when would the EAD actually expire, or when would their work authorization end?
Yes. Well, our understanding is that the EAD is going to be issued for the same length of time as the H-4. So if the H-4 is for a year or 2 years, then the EAD should be issued for the same time.
Okay. And it can be renewed?
Yes.
Okay.
You can renew it. And what we always advise our clients is to renew the EAD, and in this case, along with the H-4, at least 4 months or 120 days before the expiration date.
Okay.
So you're not going to run the risk that probably is going to be on hold or not issued by the time the EAD expires, because then you will have to stop working.
Okay. Now, is there a limit on the number of H-4 EADs like there is sometimes with the H-1B applications?
No, there's no limit. What they are estimating or calculating is that they will receive approximately 179,000 applications for EAD, as that's the number of H-4 for spouses that they have on records. All of them are eligible to apply, and probably if there's other H-4s out there for previous years and they qualify, they might also be able to apply.
Okay. So let's say if someone is in another status, like a student status or an H-1B status, and they are, of course, the spouse of an H-1B worker that has the I-140 or has a 7th-year extension, can that spouse change their status to H-4 and apply for the EAD at the same time?
Yes. Fortunately, the spouses who want to change the status to H-4 based on their husband's H-1B visa or status, they can file the petition to change the status, which is the I-539, along with the petition for employment authorization document, which is the form I-765. Currently, the Department of Immigration is taking approximately 4 to 10 months, and I know that's kind of a big number, but it's somewhere in between. That's how inconsistent they can be. 4 to 10 months to process I-539 or change of status applications for H-4. So if you, and the thing that they have advised is that when you apply for the change of status to H-4 along with the 765 or employment authorization document, is that they will first process the 539 or change of status, and once they approve that H-4, then they will begin processing the EAD, which can take another additional 3 months or somewhere between 70 to 90 days. The government has indicated that the packages that can be submitted, and I think Ms. Batman's already mentioned that this will take effect in May 26. People can start applying, but there's not going to be premium processing available, unfortunately, for either one, the 539 or EAD. So yes, you can apply for both together to change the status, but one is going to be processed before the other. So we're talking somewhere between 4 to 12 months before you probably have an employment authorization document.
Yes, and so again, that's for those who aren't already in H-4 status, that they need to change to that. So let's say if that person wants us, is there a faster way for someone in that situation to change their change to H-4 status?
Yes, like we mentioned, there's no premium processing or expedite process available. So what can be done, and actually some of our clients already do, they go outside the United States and apply to their respective consulate for the H-4 visa. Some of you might know, to apply for the H-4 visa, you do not need to have an approval in the United States. You can go with your spouse's H-1B approval notice to the respective consulate and process your H-4 visa to return to the United States in H-4 status. However, here we want people to be careful when looking or considering this option, because we do know for a fact that sometimes at the consulate it can take some time before you get an appointment or an interview to go get your H-4 visa. In addition, consulates worldwide they are in some cases doing what is called an additional administrative review. Sometimes done randomly, but that may also cause a delay in obtaining an H-4 visa.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I just want to add to that, for those who are Canadian citizens, and let's say if you're here on a TN visa, it would be easier for you to cross the border into Canada or travel and then come back with the H-4, since you don't need to have a visa or apply for a visa at embassy. So that's an advantage for Canadian citizens to get a faster H-4 for that.
Correct.
Another question that's kind of related to that is someone who is in a different status, like, for example, if I'm currently on H-1B status, can I start work if I apply for a change of status to H? Can I continue to work if I apply for a change of status to H-4 until I get that approval notice?
Yes, and that's a very good question, and we have been asked that question a few times already. Here's how it works. When you are in H-1B, you have authorization to work, so you work according to your H-1B terms. If you want to change the status to H-4 and get an EAD or employment authorization, you may do so. You will file, as we explained before, the two applications together, the H-4 and the EAD application. They will process the H-4 petition first before they start processing the employment authorization document. What will happen as soon as the H-4 is approved, your H-1B status will end, and you will be put into the H-4 status, which means you are to stop working immediately at that point. Once the H-4 visa is approved, you need to stop working, and then you'll have to wait for them to approve the EAD to continue to work. So if you are thinking about doing that, you need to time yourself very careful and look into what is the probably gap that you will experience or that you will have between the last date of employment as an H-1B and then the first day that you can start working once the EAD is approved, which may take, as we mentioned, somewhere between 70 to 90 days after the H-4 visa is approved.
And one last question. I think that you might have mentioned it before, but just so we have it clear, how long will it take for the government to process just the EAD application typically?
Yes, just as Ms. Batman mentioned before, people who are already in H-4, and we mean the ones that qualify for this program, the H-4s that qualify for this program, they can go ahead beginning May 26 to file the petitions for employment authorization documents. Normally, the Department of Immigration takes somewhere between 70 to 90 days to process these petitions. However, we believe, and we've heard some people talking about that because they are going to receive, or they expect to receive such a big number of applications, that 70 to 90 days might increase a little bit. So at this point, it's kind of difficult to predict how long they're going to take. All we can go by is what they are currently doing, which might change depending as to the number of applications they take. So at least we think it's going to be 90 days, but it could be a little bit longer. We really can't tell right now what would be the maximum, but at least 90 days, and then we go from there.
Mm-hmm. And we should hear more about this as it gets closer to May 26th from the government. We'll expect to, and we will follow any announcements and information that we get. One last thing that I just want to mention for those who might be on the call or who might listen to the recording later, if you are a J-1 waiver physician, then you generally cannot change to H-4 unless you've completed all 3 years of your J-1 waiver medical service requirement. So this really isn't an option for most J-1 waiver physicians who are completing a Conrad 30 or a government agency sponsorship in an underserved area. However, your spouses who are in H-4 can certainly apply if they meet the criteria that we talked about earlier. So that kind of concludes the information that we had to present, but now we're going to open the call to your questions, and I'll give you instructions on how to ask your question through your telephone. So, but first I just want to remind you that for confidentiality purposes, we request that you do not reveal your identity or provide specifics about your situation that will make you identifiable. So keep in mind that there are other callers who will be listening in, and we want to make sure that you protect your confidentiality and identity. Also, I'd like to remind callers again that the discussion and the question and answers in this telephone conference is really informational. It's not legal advice. You really need to understand and take the time to understand your specific situation before giving advice that's tailored for you. So, again, we ask that you not act upon the information contained without first seeking advice from an attorney. So with that, here are the instructions in order to ask a question. Your phones are currently muted, but if you would like to ask a question, then push *6, and that will let us know that you want to ask a question, and we will unmute you for that purpose. So we're going to take a minute or so and let everyone go ahead that wants to ask a question to press *6. Well, I don't see any questions. Oh, okay, I do see a few. Okay, so we'll start with that. I've got 2 questions here. I think how this works technically, I'm going to unmute you, so you should receive, okay, so caller 6798 is the last 4 digits of your phone number. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. So my question is, if you're a Canadian citizen and you're on T1, and when you switch to H-4 and then EAD, like what time can you work, or like can you work throughout?
Okay, so you're just so I understood your question. You said you're currently on TN. And
correct.
You want to change, or if you change to H-4 and then get an EAD based on that, how long can you work? Or
yeah, how long it will take, and also can I work during that time period?
Okay. Well, there's 2 questions, I think. So just the time period, like for example, if you are applying for the H-4. While you are in the United States, and you will still be in status, so you're allowed to continue working for decision. Okay. Once the H-4 decision is made, if you do not get the EAD at the same time, then you will have to stop work once you get H-4 approval. Okay. So that's where we have that situation where you might have a gap in employment, the fact that although they've approved you for H-4, they have not approved you for the work card yet.
Okay, so I might have like a 3-month period based on this conversation in between.
Right, it's very possible. We're hoping that the government what the problem is with that, and maybe make a decision. I mean, I don't see any reason why they can't make the decision at the same time, but they're giving themselves some sort of break there to give them time to decide the second application. But yes, it could potentially be another 3 months after you get your H-4 approval before you will get the work card, and that means a 3-month gap in your employment.
Okay, and not sure if I can ask another question.
Go ahead.
Also, in between of this period, my passport's expiring. I mean, for a lot of visas, they normally ask for 6 months of validity for the passport. Is that true for EAD?
Well, not for the EAD, but it is usually for the H-4 application.
The H-4, okay. Okay, thanks for taking my questions.
Sure, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next call. Okay, next caller, your phone should be unmuted. 1895 is your last 4 digits.
Hi, Hi, Ms. Badmas. I'm a physician. I'm on H-1B visa. My wife also on H-1B visa. So we both have approved I-140. I would like to apply to H-4, and because my wife's priority date is earlier than my priority date, so I want to apply to H-4 then to EAD. So my question is, if I put the date of H-4, like for example, if I apply for H-4 today, and the date of H-4 commencement should be like 3 months later, so that they can approve in 3 months. So in that 3 months, I can still working. The effective date of H-4 is like 3 months later. So after that, if I apply for an EAD at the same time, does it work or not?
You want
to? Let me just restate the question to make sure I follow you. What you're saying is that you would like to file for the change of status to H-4, let's say as soon as possible, okay, today or tomorrow or the day after, and wait for it to be approved so that when they start accepting the employment authorization documents, hopefully your H-4 visa will be approved, and then you can submit the EAD immediately. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, you could, if you want to change the status to H-4, you can file your petition to change the status at any time. Just remember, as we mentioned at the beginning, the Department of Immigration can take somewhere between 4 months to 10 months to process the H-4 change of status. So maybe in your case, it is a good thing that you start the process sooner, so you will be able to file the EAD employment authorization application as soon as possible after May 26th. What will happen once the H-4 is approved, as Ms. Badmas was explaining before, is at that point you will have to start working. You can continue to work in your H-1B visa all the way until they approve the H-4. Once the H-4 is approved, then you have to stop working and wait for them to process the employment authorization document to be able to start working again. What you will not be able to do is to file the employment authorization document petition in May if the H-4 petition is pending. You will need to wait at that point for the H-4 to be approved to file the EAD.
Okay. If I go to India, if I go to India and come back, like I will get the H-4 stamp by the time. With that, so when I leave the country, when I'm coming back, I had to be on H-4. And I will change into H-4 right away. So that time I can apply, right?
Right, that's right.
In May.
After May 26th. May 26th or after that.
Yeah.
The thing I kind of heard you say was about, and one thing I just want to clarify for everyone is that unfortunately with the H-4 application, there is not a way to, at least currently, unless they make a change to that application, there's not a way to indicate the specific date that you want the H-4 to take effect. So basically, the only thing that we can indicate would be the ending date of the H-4, which usually is the same ending date of the H-1B spouse. And then when the government makes their decision on the H-4 application, they usually have a start date of the day that they make their decision. So, for example, if they make their decision today, March 11th, your H-4 approval will be March 11th until the expiration date of your H-1 spouse's visa. So, unfortunately, there's not a way to control that, which makes it a little difficult if you are trying to do a change of status and from an H-1B, because if they adjudicate it very quickly, you have very little time to, stop working and get everything done. Right. So you probably have more certainty, as you mentioned, by going to the embassy and getting the H-4 stamp and coming back.
Because you will be able to control the time when you will become H-4, when you will get the H-4 status rather than the other way that Ms. Badness explained.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to the next caller. Okay, caller 3931 is the last 4 digits.
Hi. My husband is on H-1B visa. He's a physician here, and I'm on H-4 visa. And my husband has filed his labor certification in February of this year. I want to know when I'm eligible to apply for EAD.
Okay. Well, we need to probably have a little more information in terms of your husband's status. So, for example, as I mentioned, there's two ways to qualify. One would be to actually have the I-140 approval, which comes after the labor certification has been approved.
We have not applied for that because we are waiting for labor certification. Probably it will be done in June.
Okay. And then I'm assuming then the other way in terms of him being in his 7th year is not true. He still has more time left on his H-1B. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not the 7 years.
Okay.
I will in the criteria like I-40 funds.
Right. So you would definitely have to wait until the labor certification is approved, and then the next step of filing the I-140, which that can be premium processed. So that might be something you want to consider doing at that stage. But once the I-140 is approved and it's May 26th and after, then you can apply for the EAD.
Okay. And can I know roughly how long it will take to after I apply for EAD? How long it will take to approval for EAD?
Yeah, generally it can take anywhere. It generally takes up to 90 days. But as Ms. Lopez mentioned, we don't know, depending on the number of applicants that they get for this particular EAD, it could take longer. But in general, most EADs are issued within 90 days.
And one thing more, ma'am, is it available throughout the year, or there are some they will apply EAD this much in 1 year, like 30,000, 40,000, or every H-4 can apply for that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question, but no, there's not a limit and there's not a time frame. So whenever you're eligible, you will be able to apply for it. And they also have indicated, at least as permanent as the government can make it, that this is a program that's not temporary. It is going to continue in effect until they make a change in the future, if they do. So yes, you would be able to use that program if you qualify at any time.
Okay. Or is there any criteria like H-4 person should have some skilled job or something like that? Or any H-4 who is eligible to apply can get EAD? Like some professions are skilled, they have put on. Is there any criteria for that?
No, the only criteria is that you are in H-4 and that your spouse have an H-1B, that you have either the I-140 approved or are beyond the 6 years of the H-1B, as Ms. Batman explained. But any person who is in H-4, spouses that qualify can apply regardless of the skills. As I mentioned, you can work as little as a couple hours or as much as full-time, 40 hours or even beyond, or you may just decide to put the EAD in your drawer and not use it. It's there to be used, but it's up to the person. You can work on any job available with any employer that you wish.
And you can also use it for self-employment or starting your business, because if you're operating a business, you're actually working in that business employment, so you can use it for that as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next caller. Let me see. Okay, it's 4546.
Hi. My question to Ms. Padmas is, my wife had EAD while I was on J1 visa and she was on J2 and was working for a brief period. So now she's on H4 and I'm on H1B, J1 waiver position, and we have approved I-140. Is that EAD going to just be renewed, or is this going to be a new application for the EAD when she becomes eligible in May? And would that make any difference at all?
No, I mean, you will need to renew. You will need to file. She will need to file an actual application for the EAD. The fact that she had one before would be something she could answer on the application. There is a question asking if you had previous EADs, but she would have to submit a new application with the fees in order to get the EAD. So it would really not be based on her J2 EAD.
Okay, I mean the process would not make any faster or something like that.
No, unfortunately not. It will be the same, and it's the same when you go to renew that EAD or when she goes to renew it after getting the first one. Process is the same, and the time frame are usually the same as well. So you have to be sure that for renewals to apply at least 120 days to 90 days in advance.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Okay, caller 7061.
Hi. My question is, how much does it cost to apply for the EAD, and should I pay every time I'm trying to get it renewed? And is this information available in your site somewhere if I choose to go through your company? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yes, there's a fee. There's going to be a fee for the EAD, which is $380, and that includes the fingerprints. Usually they do fingerprints for EADs. That's the fees to the Department of Immigration. Yes, we have information on our website, and our fees are going to be, we're going to be having a fee of $500 to apply for the EAD. But if you are doing also a change of a status to H-4, then we will have a fee for the H-4 and the EAD, which is going to be about $1,000.
Those are the attorney's fees. And you can, if you do decide to work with us, you can either call or contact us through our website at www.badmaslaw.com or physicianimmigration.com and fill out the contact form there.
Okay, just to make sure, it's $380 plus $500, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
If you are already in H-4.
Yeah, I am. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next caller. I'm sorry. Next question. Okay. 4536.
Hi, thank you so much for the information. I actually have a few questions. So right now my husband is on H-1B and I think I will be eligible for an EAD. I'm not sure what's going to be the prospects for people who are under the STEM category and who are eligible for green card in the coming future. But let's say he gets his EAD or he gets his green card. Does my H-4 EAD convert to the EAD on his green card or on his EAD automatically, or does it require any change in like applications, new applications or something like that?
Oh, okay. Well, the EAD that comes with the green card application is usually the last step of the process, what's called the I-485 adjustment of status application. And whenever anyone applies for adjustment of status, they are also eligible to apply for an EAD. So if you already have an H-4 EAD when you apply for the green card along with your husband, it's your option. You can continue with the H-4 EAD, or you can apply for the I-7, the adjustment of status EAD as well. I mean, for that. So you have the option of doing either one. It's not an automatic conversion. You would have to put in a separate application for the green card application part. Is that answering your question? I want to make sure that was what you were looking at.
More or less.
Okay.
And the second question is, currently being on an H-1, working for like non-profit organizations where your options are limited either for part-time or setting up your own company or practice. Does this H-4 EAD give you that freedom or liberty to kind of do whatever you want in whatever timings you want, including like further training if you ever wanted to do that?
The EAD, the H-4 EAD, in that sense, is the same as the regular or the other EAD because they are not limiting the use of this H-4 EAD. So as the other EAD, you can work full or part-time, and as Ms. Bernas mentioned before, you can work for self-employed for your own business. And yes, if you want to use it to do further training, you can also do that. It's not going to be employer-specific or specific to certain number of hours. It's very flexible in that sense.
Okay. And my last question is not exactly related to the H-4 EADs, but, just coming back to Mr. Obama's overall immigration reform, how soon can we expect, green cards for people who are already waiting in the line, and will there be any, issues of green cards sooner for, like, STEM category people? The reason I ask is right now I'm on an H-1B, and then I have an I-140 applied, and so I'm not sure if I have to, like, wait on it and then change it to H-4 EAD versus wait on my H-1 to see, if something might cook up something towards the end of this year or early next year, and then just have my own green card and, not have to bother about these conversions anymore.
Yes, that's really sort of hard to predict in terms of how quickly the green card line will, move, hopefully move faster than it has been, especially for some people. So, yes, that's a good question. You kind of have to gauge, what's going on to determine whether you want to make that switch. We haven't really heard much lately in terms of the improvement on the visa retrogression or improving the numbers, in terms of moving green cards along. There is a conference next week, telephone conference that USCIS is holding to talk a little bit more about that, which we'll attend and try to update everyone on through our website. But it's really hard to predict. We really have no idea when that's going to take place. As you can see, the government moves very slowly in a lot of cases, especially when it's producing new or having new law or new regulations. So it took almost a year to get this H-4 regulation out. As you can see, it takes quite some time. So it's hard to say. They're making some progress from what I understand. They're meeting, they're discussing, they're doing what they said they were going to do in terms of discussions, but nothing firm has come out of it yet.
Okay. And do you think this H-4 EAD will ever be revoked, and people might not be able to, like, continue to work on their EADs, or they just have to go back to being on an H-4 and not be able to do anything?
Well, so far, what they've indicated at the last telephone conference that the USCIS had is that this is intended to be a permanent program. So it is a regulation, which means it's written in the rule. It's a written rule, not just a policy sort of thing. And so if they do plan to revoke it, they usually have to go through a process similar to what they did to implement it, which means they'd have to give the public's opportunity to comment on it and really, go through quite a bit to revoke it. So it's not something easily done. It's always possible, but it's pretty rare for them to change a regulation to that effect.
And also, in the past, when they have made changes to programs that they are eliminating or limiting or doing something to affect the length of time the program is going to be valid, they usually give enough notice to people so they can plan and make changes or do other things. they will not, if they ever do it, they will not do that one day to the next. So people will know ahead of time, first of all, if it is being considered to be revoked, and second of all, if it's going to be revoked, how long they have to plan for other options.
Okay. All right, so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions. We'll go to the next caller, 7,000.
Yes. My question is, what happens if the H-1B spouse gets terminated for any reason? What happens with the H-4 EAD?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something that we haven't, quite gotten answers yet because it is a new program. Generally, if an H-1B spouse gets terminated and they do not have another employer's H-1B application filed before the termination, then that H-1B worker really technically does not have H-1B status anymore, which also means the H-4 spouse does not have status, which we would expect then that the EAD would not be valid as well. So a termination of H-1B worker could have that impact on the work authorization for the H-4 spouse as well. So if it's a sudden termination, there's really not much you can do about that other than to try to get other employment as quickly as possible and possibly be able to extend your status. But you really, of course, will need to talk to an attorney at that time to figure out what the options are. But generally, we would expect that it would have a negative impact if the H-1B worker loses his or her job.
And if you have an approved I-140 and if you go change your status from H-1B to H-4, does that, and if your priority date becomes current, and can you use that I-140 still, or if because of your change of status it is gone now?
Oh, if you have an I-140, as long as you're in valid status, you are still able
any
to
status,
use
like you are legally valid.
Legal status, right? That's what I mean. If you're in legal status, whether it's H-1B or H-4, and if the employer is continuing with that employment for you, then you can certainly continue on to the next step when your priority date becomes current.
All right. Yeah, those were my questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next caller. I don't know how that happened. 4546.
Hi. This is actually continuation or same question that about the previous caller had before. Is there going to be any difference between the EAD on H-4 versus the EAD that you get after green card, working wise, or any benefits between those both, like whether to continue on this H-4 EAD or go for the change of status I-485 even after getting the green card?
Well, as mentioned before, in terms of the employment and hours, and you can even be self-employed, there's not really any difference. The main difference might be the term of duration. Remember, when you apply for an EAD based on the H-4, the EAD is going to be for the same term as the H-4. So if
H-1B.
For the H-1,
H-4,
yes, H-1B and H-4. So, for example, if the H-4 is for 3 years, because the H-1B is for 3 years, then the EAD, from what we understand, is going to be issued for the 3 years. When you apply for an EAD under the regular adjustment of status I-485 program, the EADs are for a year, and they can issue it for up to 2 years, depending as to the classification you are applying for. For example, if you are from one of the countries that have a backlog and you are subject to a priority date, and they can see you're not going to get a green card, but in 5 or 6 years, they may give you an EAD for 2 years, and then you'll have to renew it. The other big difference is going to be the fees, because if you apply for the EAD under the 485 or regular processing method, then you will not have any fees to pay when you are to renew or when you apply for that application, because the 485 fee covers the EAD fees, including renewals. But if you apply for the EAD under the H-4, well, then you will have to pay the fees for that EAD. So I think that if you have the option of applying for an EAD under the 485 or the EAD under the H-4, you need to weigh your options and determine which is more favorable to you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we have one last question here. Let me go on here. Okay. 8864. I'm sorry, it's very difficult. It's kind of breaking up a little bit, or a lot actually. We can't really understand or hear it.
Do you?
I'm sorry. It really is. It's a lot of static. Maybe
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I'll read on your side. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for attending our call today. We want you to know that we will update our website, our blogs at www.badmuslaw.com or www.physicianimmigration.com and physicianimmigration.com. So please be sure to visit or subscribe to these blogs so that you can get the most updated information. Many of our clients have requested assistance with this new program, so I expect we'll be quite busy with them. If you would like our help as well, please contact us as early as possible, since we usually have to process these requests in the order that they're received. So if you would like us to help you, just call us at 214-672-2000 or visit our websites and complete the short Contact Us forms. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.